Hey everybody, it's Brendan Baylod from the Great Lakes Shipwreck Research Group. Here today to tell you about an interesting project that I'm going to be kicking off with, hopefully, with members of our group here. It's a real opportunity to take an existing resource that's already pretty valuable, but really supercharge it, put it sort of on steroids in terms of its value to the Great Lakes Maritime History community. What I'm talking about is the Dave Swayze Shipwreck database, which I was very deeply involved in the creation of. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on this database, why it's important, and how it was created, and then I'm going to go and walk through kind of the goals of the project that we're going to be kicking off here at the end of the summer, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how to get involved. So the Swayze database is really the result of a book that David Swayze came out with in the 1990s called Shipwrecked. And it was basically a compendium of all the shipwrecks that he could find information on in common, sources in books, mostly secondary sources. And so he built this flat file list of shipwrecks on the Great Lakes, which was, fairly complete for its day. And it became pretty obvious that he was missing a lot, and so a group of us got together at Dave's invitation and started to submit all the wrecks we knew about that were missing. This was back in the 90s and 2000s, so people like me, Walter Lewis, Bill McNeil, Jerry Metzler, Jack Messmer, who else? Just a lot of us, Pat Labadie, from on the lakes who had a lot of shipwreck data, began to share original accounts with Dave, and we really beefed this database up, and we added about 1,000 wrecks to it. I personally added about 500 Lake Michigan wrecks to the database. Now, Dave was, pretty conservative about what he would include. He was sort of the arbiter of what went into it. So we'd submit wrecks to him, and if the news microfilm article didn't say total loss, or we couldn't find a customs house document surrender, he often, just wouldn't include it. And I felt like we were missing a lot of wrecks because of that. Likewise, there were a lot of wrecks that he included that weren't total losses, that were recovered, but he wanted to include them just to, for clarity, that because it was reported in some sources as a total loss. So we have that kind of inconsistency in how the database was put together. One of the other issues with the database is it was created before the emergence of modern online newspaper databases. So back in those days, we'd have to go to a library, and we would have to look through the microfilms to find these and make a copy of them at 25 cents a piece and mail it to Dave, or scan it. And nowadays, you have newspapers.com, newspaperarchive.com, these databases where you can really quickly research these wrecks in all the major newspapers on the Great Lakes. And so it's much easier now to find new wrecks that perhaps are missing and to correct data that's maybe not correct. Also, a lot of new sources have come to light that weren't in existence when we made the original database. There are full databases of enrollment data, like the Metzler database, and there are the new Customs House rec reports that I discovered down at the National Archives in Chicago. We have over 8,000 Customs House rec reports that we didn't know about back then. And so many new total losses have come to light. We've debunked some things. And so we have a real opportunity to take this database and make it exceptionally useful. And this is, by far, the most complete and detailed database in existence of Great Lakes shipwrecks. Now, we have vessel databases like the Labadie database, and here's the Labadie database. And as you can see, he'll list everything about the vessel. And he'll even talk about what its final disposition was, and he'll list its whole career. So this is really detailed, and he's got all the pictures, if he had them. But you can't search this database and ask, does this vessel have extant remains? And you can't ask that on any of the vessel databases. You can't ask, is it undiscovered? You can't ask any of those kind of basic foundational questions. What we'd like to do is take the Swayze database and make it so you can ask those questions. And because the database is so complete with respect to vessels that were actually lost, we could easily add that type of information. So most people are really interested when they're researching vessels now in whether it has verified or probable extant remains. So what we're hoping to do is for every record in the database, we'd like to add a field for whether or not the vessel, how it was lost, basically. So Swayze has sort of a loss type, but he just says things like storm or fire. That's not really very valuable in terms of knowing what really happened. What we're going to do is add a final disposition field of like on beach, shallow, buried, removed, deep, very deep, So things that broke up on a reef, for example, or that found right off the piers, would be shallow. Things that went ashore, would be beach wrecks. If we know that it was completely removed, we'd say removed. If it's in over, say, 50 feet of water, we'd maybe say it was deep. So that would tell us, let us, really kind of stratify the vessels in the search. I'd also like to add a discovery state field, whether it's discovered, undiscovered, removed, or unverified, meaning, somebody's claimed to have legitimately discovered it, and we believe that it's been discovered, but the discovery hasn't been verified yet. That would be easy to do. Most people who are researching on the Great Lakes actually know that information for the wrecks in their area, so I think that would be a useful field. If the wreck has been found, we could add its GPS coordinates and depth. Those are usually online, widely available in dive guides or in the sanctuary and preserve pages, or in different books. Lastly, we could add external links to vessels. For each shipwreck, we could add a link to the Metzler database, to the Labadie database, to the Lewis database, a page for each, one of those wrecks. Or if it's had a photogrammetry model, we could put a link to 3dshipwrecks.org. Or if it's in an underwater preserve or a sanctuary, we could drop a link to that page and really beef up this. So it'd be kind of a nexus where you could come in here and quickly jump off, if you wanted to take a deep dive into that wreck. And maybe that's not so fun for the tourist dive wrecks, but it would be really interesting for shipwrecks that haven't been found, or that are archaeological sites, or that are historically interesting, but maybe not of interest to sport divers. So we'd like to add that kind of information. So if you're so inclined, we would like to have new wrecks added also that you know about that aren't in the database. There are a lot of wrecks that we just omitted because, at the time we didn't have the research resources. Although I would say that the database is probably 80% complete at least, maybe closer to 90% complete. We'd also like to correct entries where we know there are problems. So this is the administrative interface. And so, for example, if we wanted to look up the wreck, the Bolivar, there are two of them, both older vessels. The one off Racine, for example. This will give you an example of what you see. And you can edit this record. You push edit, and it brings up an editable form of the record, and you can go through and make any changes and save the record as it is, or you can abandon the changes if you didn't like them. You can delete the record if you don't like it, or if you think you accidentally entered it, and you can insert a new record if you want to make a new database entry. These are automatically tagged with the date and with the with the user who put it in, and then it gets flagged for peer review after it gets updated. So I get to look at it, or somebody else can look at it and just make sure that your work was sound, and then be accepted. So if you're interested in helping with this project, ping me. You can email me at bailod@shipwreck.info. That's BAILLOD @shipwreck.info, or just instant message me on Facebook, and I will add you to the group. In September, I'm going to put together a Zoom meeting where we will walk through the criteria, the methodology for going through these records, and we will kick off the project. Between now and then, I'm going to program the interface to add these new fields and to add the fields to the database and to update the search engine so it's searchable by the new criteria. And then what I'd like is to get people who are experts in their area of the Great Lakes. So if you're a Lake Ontario expert, if you're a Lake Erie expert, a Lake Superior expert, or maybe just an expert in an area of a lake, I'd be really happy to have you go through and do a subset of the records. If you can go through, you'd be surprised how fast you can go through 100 recs, especially since we're just going to try to update the discovery information first on the first pass through. And if you know of recs that aren't in here, you can add them. So interesting project. We have a real opportunity to take the Swayze database and make it sort of the Swayze database Mark II that is much more accurate, much more usable, and reflects the data available to us now, in 2025, instead of sort of what was available to us in 25 years ago when we made most of this. So I hope you can join us and participate in the project. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me. So hope you can join us. Thanks, everybody.